Hi there. I'm Hannah from the Wyoming branch.
Hi everyone, I'm Chelsea. I'm actually stationed at our service center, so y'all might not have seen me around a bit, but I exist.
Hooray! So, we are going to share some graphic novels today for teens and adults. And these are all going to be under the horror genre. So, these are all great spooky reads. I'm going to start with a couple teen titles, and then the rest are all going to be adult titles. So, that just means they're still perfectly good and cool books. They just are probably going to have more adult content and more gore and that kind of stuff. So just a
Okay.
heads up with that. But first, I'm going to share a couple of my teen titles because they're going to be short. And then Chelsea's going to start with sharing an adult graphic novel. And then I'm going to share an adult graphic novel. And then we're going to hopscotch for a bit.
Mhm.
If you miss any of these titles, no big deal. I've made a book list that I'm going to add on the Facebook page as a comment, and it's also available on kdl.org under the title of More Than Superheroes. So let's get into it. The first one I want to share is actually originally a webcomic, and you can still find it for free online. They just recently put it in a collection that you can access via Hoopla, and that is Sacred Heart.
Ooh, it's a good one.
Yeah. So this one, the premise, a bunch of teens are left to their own devices. All of their parents have left for several years on a religious pilgrimage. And a lot of it's like slice of life, teens trying to fend for themselves, making friends, trying to figure out teen hierarchy, all that stuff. But there's also a dark undertone because they don't quite know why, but they suspect that when their parents return, darkness and doom will follow. And the art, it's very cartoony. The art still kind of reminds me of Captain Underpants in a way, just because
I,
it's just drawn in.
I was
Um,
just gonna say that.
yeah.
Like it's
If
kind
you
of
were
Dave
getting folks,
Pickley.
yeah, you'd probably like this too.
Oh yeah.
And there's a few volumes available on Hoopla, but if you just fly through it, you can find it in webcomic form as well. And the characters are really likable in it too.
Awesome. It's a good
It's
one.
fun. It's poppy. And then the next one I'm going to bring up is a teen title. Is very spooky. It involves ghosts.
Perfect.
And that is Animus.
Oh yeah, this is on my to read list actually.
I'm going to attempt to do this without spoilers. But there's this playground in Japan. People mysteriously disappear, weird stuff happens, and these two siblings, boy and girl, go to this playground to try to find out what's happening. So it's a bit of a mystery, and they find this ghost boy in the playground
Oh, cool.
who's very sociable.
Huh.
And then, yeah, they figure out the mystery together. So
Cool.
it's cool. It definitely reminds me of a Japanese folk story.
I was just gonna say that. I'm like, it reminds me a lot of the folklore tales that have like that urban legend type tone of like haunted places around the city and everything.
Yeah, it reminds me of if you've ever read the Quite On Japanese folk graphic novel collection,
Yeah, that's a good one.
which is another good one.
Hmm.
Um, it's all older stuff, but it's all put in a cool little collection. And I
Yeah,
like the spooky.
that's
Spooky, but not gory. So if you like
right.
spooky, but don't like the guts and gore, blah, yay! That
Perfect.
would be a good
Yeah.
one for it. But what do you have to share with us, Chelsea? You got a good one?
Yeah, I do actually. Got a couple. So kind of I guess since you mentioned a lack of gore, I'd be like, on the other hand, if you kind of prefer a bit more of that like visceral spook, like with some body horror type stuff, then what I've been like devouring lately has been Infidel on
Which
Hoopla.
I just finished as well.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's great. I really enjoyed it. I will say that it's rated mature for a reason. Um, Deals with a lot of like intense themes, not necessarily like overt violence, but it's dealing with almost like the personification of like Islamophobia and other forms of racism. So it's a nice blend of like the mundane horror of the world that we live in, along with an element of the fantastic. So here is, and the other reason I really enjoyed it also is just the artwork, which is why I mentioned like if you kind of want something a little bit more spooky, um, this would be a good one for it because I actually had to take some breaks because the
Yeah.
representations, I don't know if you guys can kind of see, but
Yeah.
of the monsters in it. And this is just one of the sketches in the back of the book because we actually have the special edition of it that includes all of this concept art. But basically, it can get a little bit graphic and everything with the depiction of the monsters. There's a lot of scenes with like fires and stuff. So if like burns or anything like that really freak you out, this is probably not the book for you. But if you can handle some spook mixed with some real world horror, mixed with some like eldritch occult stuff going on, along with an interesting message on like social treatment of people from other cultures, that sort of racism, bigotry, even in its more subtle senses, this is a great book to get into for that. So I
Yeah. And
really enjoyed it.
it's very beautifully illustrated
It's
as well.
gorgeous. Yeah, I don't know if I can find, just trying to flip
Yeah,
through
it's
here.
kind of careful. It's like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, because I don't really want to. I don't really want to like show up something that's like too much, and everything to like spoil in it. But here's another concept art page with the you can kind of see that one with the eyeball is like
Yeah.
there's a lot of weird eye stuff in it, I noticed. I don't know if you noticed it when you
Yeah, it kind of
yeah,
reminded me of
there's some
a little bit with all the eye fascination sometimes.
yeah, so that, again, if you're a little weird about that, it might not be the book for you, but the story is amazing and I enjoyed it.
And I think it's just going to get bigger and bigger because it's
Yeah.
on NPR's watch list too, which does not
Yeah.
happen with graphic novels that often.
No, so this one's pretty revolutionary in that.
Yeah.
So definitely
Well,
worth checking out.
well, let's see. What do I want to share? Because I've got a whole kit and caboodle. Let's take a break from the drizzle and gore.
Yeah.
This is a psychological horror.
Okay.
This is in the manga format,
Perfect.
and that is Blood on the Tracks.
Nice.
So this one, I just finished it. I have thoughts. Very spoilery, so I'm going to try to keep this as vague as possible.
Okay.
This is a story of a mother who really loves her son.
Okay.
To the point that some people think she's kind of overbearing, but it's actually the story of the young boy and how his life and his mother's love becomes this all-consuming psychological horror
Okay.
story. So it's very subtle, and there isn't any gore in it, which I find fascinating because they could have done that quite easily, but they didn't.
Wow. I mean,
There's
I
a
think
lot
that's
of
kind of a high road.
very
Oh.
subtly. You get a lot of social cues in this, and you have to
Wow.
really pay attention to it. But it's a cool psychological manga. I think,
For
and we
sure.
just got these, so they're brand new. And I think we
I was
have
gonna
up
say,
to.
I was like, that looks new.
It's brand new. I might have been eyeballing it before it showed up, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"Is it ready to circulate yet?" But it's now out, and I
Perfect.
think we're up to volume 5.
Oh, good. So we've got a bit of running room for people if they get hooked.
Yes, and they are speedy,
Awesome.
which is a nice thing about mangas. If you can get into them, you can just fly through things.
Yeah, they're a good quick read.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. So this kind of works because you kind of went on like a family theme a little bit with that one, just a touch.
In a way.
Slightly. I'm going with it. I might be grasping at straws a bit here. But the one that I'm going to talk about next here is Farmhand. which is also on Hoopla. I can't remember if we have a physical copy of it or not, but
But it looks really good on Hoopla, so don't let that scare you off.
exactly. And Hoopla is great. Like, I'm sure that, like, you've mentioned it before, but it is awesome. I was reading it on my phone for a while last night while my tablet was charging, and Hoopla will just like jump you from panel to panel to thought to talk bubble to talk bubble, so you don't really have to squint if you got a smaller screen. But basically, with Farmhand, the idea of the story, and this one is a bit more humorous than the last one, which was a really good break. So it's kind of like a dark, it's still horror, but it's kind of almost got some dark comedy elements as well. Um, Even just the style that it's drawn in, and you can kind of see on this page right here, it's like definitely that more cartoony type. If I can actually figure out which way my camera goes. There we go.
Got it.
Yeah. But it's a little bit more of like a cartoon style versus like that more realistic style, like what we saw with like Infidel and everything. And I think that helps kind of convey the kind of more like surreal tone of this story. So it's about a family that it's mainly focusing on the oldest son named Zeke, and his dad is a farmer in this tiny little podunk town. And they've had a falling out. Like, we actually come into the story where he hasn't talked to him in a while. Like, he's just actually decided to reconnect with his dad because of his kids. And so they can get to know their grandpa. But you find out that his dad might not have been the best, like, conventional farmer, but he somehow has been granted a vision. So he designs an intelligent stem cell that can basically be grafted onto the human body, and it's smart enough that it'll figure out to morph and change into whatever body part the person needs. So
I'm
it's
sure.
miraculous,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so it's miraculous and whatever, but it's he's made a huge business out of it. There's obviously some shadiness. Half the town thinks that this guy is, evil for being able to do this, and other people are like, no, this is a wonderful scientific advancement.
Yeah.
So all of that surrounded with a dysfunctional family with two really humorous kids that get into some crazy like situations and whatever. But even though it is lighter, I would say that there is still some humor and imagery in here. This is still definitely like adult more than anything.
Oh yeah, it's definitely an adult horror, but it's a more humorous one. Like if you kind of like Tremors.
Yeah, that's exactly the tone.
That's the tone I get out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of goofy, but it's also like, oh, maybe it could happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's like all a bunch of like, you can tell it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it still takes itself seriously enough to be like, but what if it did?
What if it did? This is... So speaking of, I'll bring this one up of a humorous one. This is in the oldie but a goodie, and that is Wormwood Gentleman Corpse.
Love this one. This is a classic.
So this is the collection I recommend in Hoopla, which is Mr. Wormwood Goes to Washington. There's a bunch of these, but this is kind of like if you want to try it out, this is a good one.
That's a great starting point.
The main character is a trans-dimensional worm.
Yes.
And he takes over dead bodies and treats them like little puppets so he can interact and save the world over and over again from other spooky things. And his favorite is like this guy who's like this little political gentleman-y kind of looking dude.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take itself very seriously, which I appreciate. And I actually think he's kind of a cute little trans-dimensional worm, but...
I think he's adorable in his own dark way, but then again, I also find sharks and reptiles cute, so, I might not be the best. Yeah, we might not be
good examples of this, but we find him somewhat adorable.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's just goofy. If you like goofy zombie stuff and spooky stuff, if you like H.P. Lovecrafty kind of mood, but spookier. Night Vale. If you like Night Vale, you'd probably be into it.
Night Vale is a good comparison for it. That is a very good point.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Oh. shoot, my hoopla just kicked me out.
That was rude.
Yeah.
So while you're doing that, I'll bring up one I have right here.
Go ahead.
This is going to be psychological and also a bit of monster body horror kind of stuff.
Ooh.
It's pretty grisly.
Nice.
But it has a point to it, and that is Red Fork.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
So this one is by TKO Studios, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be a single shot. If you ever hear someone say single shot, that means one and done.
Mm-hmm. Not a series.
Volumes, it's just start, finish, which I love because my attention span needs these.
You're like, I can't always commit to a novel.
Can't. I can fly through a couple hours and I'm done. This is in a failing mining town. And everyone's kind of moving away or kind of dying out or stuff like that. But then this one person comes back to champion it. And to be like, no, we're going to make this town better. But then the industry in charge of the mining town doesn't appreciate it. And then grisly things happen down there, including mysterious mining collapses, but they seem off. They don't seem right.
That's not good.
We're under the that's not good category. If there were ever any fictional universes you wouldn't want to get sucked into, probably this one. But the art's cool. Trying to find one that isn't gory, not an easy feat.
I was just gonna say. Oh, I love that.
The art's very poppy, which I
was just gonna say. I'm like, it looks kind of like old school retro type, you know.
And I'm just gonna say this. I don't know if other people care about this, but it's something I appreciate. TKO, wherever they print, it's good paper.
That's the best with these books. Just saying.
It's not too thick.
Yep.
It's like the perfect consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are a textural person with your books, TKO Studios usually does they really care about where they're printing stuff and how the book feels in your hands, which I appreciate.
You don't always get that anymore, you know? Ooh.
It's like the mine scenes kind of look like that. They're very dark. I'm not going to zoom in too much because you might see a spoiler. But this is a one and done Red Fork. So.
All right. I got back on Hoopla, so we're in business. But we're pretty close on time, so I'll go quick.
We can go over a little. It's not a big deal.
Oh, cool. All right. Yeah, then I'll talk. So this is for my my true crime fans out there. Honestly, like with the rise in it and like podcasting and all that jazz, I was like, it's just a matter of time, you know, and all that. So now we've actually got some awesome graphic novels that detail and work with true crime, which is cool to me because I don't feel like you see a whole lot of like horror graphic novels that are like nonfiction. But this one is, and it is also on Hoopla, and it's an account of the Green River Killer case, which this case, if anybody knows anything about it, pretty grisly. There was a horrible man who murdered quite an amount of prostitutes back in the day. And by the time they caught him, unfortunately, this gentleman no longer even remembered where some of their burial sites were. A lot of the land had been developed, all of that. So this story actually takes place mostly with the detective who caught this killer. And it's him actually going around with him to the different sites, trying to get him to remember like where these women are buried, because he's trying to find them to reconnect them with their families and their loved ones. So needless to say, it's a very heavy story, but I mean, if you love true crime, like, you know that this is, just kind of par for the course what you run into with these types of stories. But the artwork in this is beautiful. It is very dark. So, I mean, I'm going to try and get this here. I can figure out my camera. There we go. There we go. Okay, we're kind of in business.
Yeah.
So this is just the cover page here. But it actually, the detective was a consultant, I believe, also with writing the story and coming up with the format for the graphic novels. So that's kind of cool that they actually had him there and they could talk to him and be like, what was this like? And I feel like the artwork really reflects that because a lot of this is in like black and white. Actually, I think pretty much all of it. You might get a pop of color every few pages, but for the most part, we're looking at just like standard black and white. It's very bleak. The line work is very clean, which I think just kind of adds to the fact that this is, it's it's a heavy story. So I think it just is kind of showing you like good, evil, sort of like through the color and the artwork representations, which, if you want the full experience when you're reading a graphic novel, you always want that artwork to be like right there with the tone of the story. And this one, I think, really does it.
Yep, and that's hard to do, especially with a graphic novel, and to still be like mindful of the content and that it's about real people.
Exactly, and this one does a very good job of that. There are some graphic scenes, so again, because you do get to see recreations and illustrations of crime scene photos. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're a true crime freak like me, let me at it.
Well, cool. So I have a couple more I'll share, and then I'll let you finish it up. But that sounds good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, all right. So this is a good one if you like witchy stuff and monster gore. And that is Carroll County.
Awesome.
So,
okay.
Which there's a lot of volumes of it. It's available in physical format. It's available in digital format. Any format you prefer, it's around. And the basic premise is this girl that's grown up in this town her whole life. She's aware that the woods are kind of spooky and full of monsters, but she doesn't think much of it. She turns 18. Town starts acting real different, and she starts thinking, oops, I might be the reincarnation of a witch that cursed this whole place.
Oops.
That might be a problem.
Yeah,
but the artwork is just so cool.
It is.
And like she has like a character. I find this character endearing, but there's no way to describe this endearing character without sounding not quite aligned. It's kind of like the ghost.
Okay.
Only, it lives in a suit of skin with no bones.
Nice.
But he moves around just fine. And he's very protective of his friends. So, yeah. And I'm not going to show you much just because the gore's pretty up there. But the artwork's pretty cool. It's got cool color pencil work in it. I'll kind of peep my little buddy just a little. There's
awesome.
Ignore the top.
You're like nothing to see here.
There's nothing to see up there. It's very grisly, but if you like witch stuff and witches not necessarily being nice.
Gray witches.
Yeah.
Love and light.
They're just doing their best life. Then that's a really good one for you. And then my last one is going to be a really quick description. Werewolf Cop.
Perfect.
Is a werewolf cop story. The cop is a werewolf, and he's being a werewolf solving crimes. So Lonesome Days, Savage Nights. And this is the first volume. He's a rookie cop, gets bit by a werewolf, and then kind of in the way of Dexter, he uses his werewolf powers to stop crime.
Awesome. I was just going to ask him, so does he go the good route or does he go evil?
He's a werewolf. I think sometimes he means well, but, werewolves are going to werewolf sometimes.
You got to eat, man. Oh, wow. That is beautiful.
It's so cool.
Awesome.
Love colors, but they do a lot with the limited color palette. they have.
Yeah,
And
it's all how you use it.
Yeah, it's also by TKO Studios, and it's just a really well-made, well-bound book as well.
Awesome. Good to
So
know.
that is all I have.
Okay, so just waiting for my last one to get, there we go. So this one is kind of my baby. I love it. It's really bizarre. I've never read anything quite like it, but it's called Witches, and it's Witches with a Y, so it's Wytches. In the past, I've accidentally spelled it wrong, and people haven't been able to find it, so I'm not going to do that. But
you have the book list, so you won't have to hunt for it.
Perfect. So this is the cover of this guy. Yeah, if I can actually. This would be way easier if my laptop would cooperate, but here we go. So you can kind of see it's all of it takes place in this small, like small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows everybody's scandal. Unfortunately, I can't really give too much about the plot because this comic is so bizarre that like really just about anything I can give y'all is going to give away a major piece. But I will say that it can be described as like witches, but as a more of a creature. Like a witch is not a person in this sense. Like this is a monster.
Yeah.
And everything. And the people in the town have an interesting relationship with it. And it kind of lives in the woods, that sort of thing. And it's one of those things where it seems like half the town is affected by their presence in terms of getting attacked or sacrificed to them. And the other half doesn't even think they exist. So it's interesting, the dichotomy there between the townsfolk and the belief, you know. But definitely something worth checking into. Let's see if I can find a good picture because the artwork in this is pretty great. But
I mean, all these graphic novels we shared today are all pretty in their own way, but I think Witches is right up there, one of the most attractive ones I've ever seen, and Infidel is one of the most attractive ones I've ever seen.
I can agree to that. And they have kind of almost similar art styles. So I think maybe that's why everybody likes them. But this one is towards the beginning of the book, so I'm not really spoiling too much, but you can kind of see with my horrible camera skills.
No, you're good. I just saw someone having a bad day in the corner. Oh there's the bad day.
It is a bad day. That's what I said. And this is like only 3 pages in, y'all. So, you know, prepare yourselves. It's a heavy one. Right now there's only 1 volume out, so they haven't continued the story. It's fun on
the worst. You're like, please.
I know. I'm like, come
on. But will it?
Yeah, nobody knows. And it's been a while, so I don't know. So I will warn everybody, I don't know when the next one's coming, but it's still worth a read.
Yeah, it's just a fun ride. So
exactly. It's beautiful. It's good for a good spook.
Yeah, it's good for good spook. I hope all these titles will be fun and spooky for you to celebrate spring. And with that, have a good rest of your week. Enjoy the sunshine and the rumbles of the storms this week, and we will catch you later. Bye-bye.
Happy reading, y'all.